Morning, my name is Vilna Yields. I'm registered as a master's student and for medical laboratory scientist. And I think I'm too old for this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Munyane Mushomi, master's student, social development professions.
Hello, my name is Mubeshni Dharmalingam. I'm a master's student from HMS department.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anele Siwahla, a master's student from the dietetics department.
Morning, everyone. My name is Shkongelo Kubai. I'm a master's student in psychology.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kokejo Marobela, and I'm also a master's student in the Department of Psychology.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ukiswe Sefile from the Research Directorate. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. I am Tembeka Stinani from the Research Directorate.
Good morning, everyone. I am Yolanda Mbalenhle Mngongo, master's student in environmental health and nanomedicine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Norma Koza. I'm from DSI Nanomedicine, master's student.
Good morning, everyone. I'm from the Environmental Health Department. I'm a PhD student.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brenda Ntlokongolo. I'm a PhD student, nursing science.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Obutleng Maka. I'm from the DSI Mandela Nanomedicine platform.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mpongwepe. I'm also from DSI Nanomedicine platform.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stan Skuman. I'm also with the DSI Nanomedicine platform.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Musekene Tinavuyo, and I am from the pharmacy department, and I'm doing my MPharm.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hopo Moyo, also Master of Pharmacy student.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Melari, Research Directorate.
Morning, everybody. I'm Fiona Goliath from the Department of Social Development Professions, and I'll be speaking to you just now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth. I'm doing my master's in psychology.
Hi guys, my name is Silo. I'm also a MPharm student, so it looks like the pharmacists are here. So yeah, I'm also an MPharm student, masters.
Hi everyone, Beth Limuton from Research Directorate, and I always send you emails about workshops. Thank you.
Colleagues on the floor, have I missed anyone?
Hello, everyone. I am Setelo Mashinje, a master's in psychology department.
Everyone, my name is Sunday Arioga. I'm a student.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucia. I'm doing the Masters of Dietetics.
Adrian? Okay, Barry? Colleagues online, when I call your name, can you just please give us a very brief introduction? Boniswa?
Good morning. My name is Boniswa. I'm a PhD student in environmental health.
Phillips?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Adelaide Phillips, and I'm doing my PhD in social work professions.
Titus?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cardinal Titus, and I'm doing my Masters in social work.
Goodman?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Goodman. I'm doing my master's in the social work professions.
Lucia?
Hi, my name is Lucia. I'm doing my master's in dietetics.
Mokeseng.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mokeseng. I'm doing a PhD in health sciences. Thank you.
Nondumiso.
Good day, everyone. I'm doing my,
Carry on.
sorry. I'm doing my master's degree in social work. Thank you.
Okay. The rest of you, just for the sake of time, just in the chat box, please just type name, surname, the department that you're representing, and the level of your qualification right now. Thank you so much. Colleagues, we hand over to Prof. Goliath, who's going to address the intricacies around being a postgrad student, and she's going to also touch on the student-supervisor relationship. Prof. Goliath, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We're just getting the presentation for online people to see too. Okay, so yes, it's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you. I'm Viana Goliath from the Department of Social Development Professions. For those of you who don't know, it's where the social work program is located. I already heard somebody say that they're too old for this. So I think you've had a mouthful this morning, and maybe there's a lot of trepidation and questions about what am I doing here? Like, what have I gotten myself into? So I was asked to talk to you about, let me just get the slides to move. Is it moving? Yeah. To speak to you about what is a postgraduate student, which is what I think you should know since you've signed up for it, but we'll unpack it and then speak about the student-supervisor relationship. And I mean to put a timer on for myself because I'm using 45 minutes now instead of an hour. And then to speak about I've also added what supervision is not, because I think we have a lot of misconceptions. And unfortunately, the history of higher education is that there's a lot of power imbalances. You know, we enter assuming that the supervisor is this high and mighty person that I need to obey and that I need to adhere to and so forth. And often, sadly, that power relationship is reinforced from the onset of how it was established. So I think it's just trying to equalize the relationships that's important, and that's why I've put what supervision is not in there as well. I thought maybe just to give us some context so that we see the bigger picture here. And the context is that 18.3 million people were of working age in South Africa. So that's between the ages of 18 and 64. 18.3 million of those people are not in education or in employment at the moment. So that means that excludes us, right? Because we are neither. And there's just the statistics in terms of what percentage of that constitutes females and what constitutes males. So you can see females continue to sort of like lag behind in terms of that bigger context. So that gets us to rethink whether I'm too old for this. You know, it's like, even if we're reclaiming for the ones that are not here, might be a good motivation. Even more important is that less than 6% of South African adults have a degree at their highest level of educational attainment, and that is 2021 statistics. So as we are seated here today, you constitute about 8% of the country's population that are aspiring towards postgraduate studies. And I think that's a really important statistic to keep in mind when the going gets tough and you feel overwhelmed and you wonder, why the heck have I gotten myself into this, right? We have the research from the University of South Africa, USAF. So I've just put some statistics for you there, that currently universities, the 26 higher public education institutions, higher education institutions, produce 3,200 PhDs per year. And the target is to increase it to 5,000 by the year 2030. So you can see that big jump that is estimated, and there's several programs aimed to fast track and achieve that, especially amongst educators and staff members in higher education as well. So while there is such a steady growth, it's critical for us to note that 50%, at least 50% of PhD graduates are not South African nationals. And that statistic is brought in specifically to speak about, you know, the inequities. We live in an incredibly unequal society and also an inequitable society. And so keeping in mind the South African and the larger African context, I think is critical for us to understand, what am I doing here and what am I trying to achieve, you know, with this postgrad study, and who will it benefit? I think that is critical. I'm hoping that you are here because there's a bigger good and a higher good into which you wish to make a contribution. So being a PG student, of course, you are part of really a selected few, and you've obviously earned your seat. And my question is, how will you make it count, right? And what are the odds against which you've enrolled for PG studies? So I've got 11 postgrad students at the moment, the bulk of them of which are doing this part-time. And so they're full-time parents, they are in full-time employment, and they are pursuing postgrad studies. So the odds are quite great, right? You've got multiple roles, and to keep that in mind, and as I speak through the roles and responsibilities of the supervisor and the supervisee, at some point you will feel like you're being pursued by a person that you're in an involuntary relationship with, right? If your supervisor gets on your case. But then it's to try and remember that for that person, you are one of so many students that they have invested in, that the institution have invested in, and that you have invested in yourself. And so they would be pursuing you relentlessly. And if they're not pursuing you, you want to be pursuing them, right? So you're wanting to have this relationship really at a reciprocal level, that there is you keeping all of your other roles in mind, but putting a high premium on this role of a postgrad student, because you are here at a great cost, financial and several other senses as well. And I know situations are different for people. I also thought it's important for us to put the Mandela University attributes up front. So those are graduate attributes that as a Mandela ambassador, Mandela University ambassador, you really wish to anchor yourself in and foreground. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points. The slides are available to you, but it's just to keep in mind that we are lifelong learners. Your supervisor will learn as much from you as you are learning from them. You might have a lot of subject expertise from a professional sense that your supervisor will keep up to step with you. I find myself having to go and read on my students' subject areas if they're doing research, not in my subject area, but in the methodology that I'm strong in. So lifelong learning applies to not just the student, but definitely to the supervisor as well. So we're expecting that you would have foundational knowledge and literacies already in place. And therefore, when you are approaching your supervisor and when you're submitting work, especially for doctoral students, you always want to ask yourself, which of these knowledges are assumed to already be in place, right? Because you don't want to restate the obvious and you're writing for a different audience. So I'm jumping around a little bit by linking it to the relationship as well, but I'm wanting you to see that there are particular knowledges that is assumed to be in place. So if your supervisor tells you, please take that out, that makes the proposal too long, then you would have, like my M student said to me yesterday, so you're saying I should leave that out, even though I think that's important. I said, Yes, at this point, I'm going to instruct you to leave it out because now I've asked politely and gently in the 2 previous rounds, please delete. And now I'm instructing, okay? So there are particular knowledges that has to be in place already. We do expect learning and innovation competencies. You are doing your research based on you here, and we have particular values that we aspire towards as an institution. So we're not just doing research because we want the qualification, right? You're doing research because you're going to contribute to the body of knowledge, to professional practice, to the literacies, and especially to civic society, we're hoping, because we're also in health sciences here. And then you are honing life and career skills. And so with that comes all those qualities of being resilient, really being agile and adaptive. And I think words that you're going to continue to hear into eternity. So I wanted to ask a question. If I use the word postgrad student, what are some of the words that pop up in your mind? Postgrad student? Just shout out any word, put up your hand, and I think we might have maybe a greater flow. And I'm going to check the students online. You are very welcome to also pop your words in there. Postgrad student, what comes to mind? Masters? Struggling with funding? Sorry, yourself? Critical thinking? Stress? Yes. Researching? Yeah. So stress, I'm assuming, can be positive and negative, right? And yes, what else? A lot of reading. Yeah. What else? Sorry. Independent. Uh-huh. More?
Is there anyone online that wants to contribute? I will allow 3 contributions. You can unmute yourselves.
Ethics. Ethics, yes. Thank you. 2 more? From the floor?
Feedback.
Feedback, yes. Feedback and feed forward as well. Yeah. 1 more? Some sense of status, especially listening to those statistics, right? Okay, so yes, so is it moving? Yeah. Before I get to the slide, let me just summarize then. So yes, being a postgrad student, so I'm speaking from a clinical psychologist and a social worker by profession. So I've done PG studies a few times over before the PhD as well. So it is financially stressful, right? It requires a lot of independent thinking, long hours. It brings all of those huge responsibilities. It calls for autonomy, independence, and so forth. So all of what you have said is definitely correct. And yes, status is part of it. And that is why I said oftentimes we have a very imbalanced relationship with supervisor, supervisee. And at Mandela University, because we have a humanizing pedagogy, we're hoping you will experience it as an equalizing relationship, right? One wherein in which you have a voice, in which you can use your critical reasoning and thinking, not just in terms of your topic, but in terms of talking through the processes as well, right? And time frames. And that very good question that somebody asked earlier about risk, and there's assumptions that the elderly is a high risk group. So who's decided that the elderly is a high risk group, right? Who has decided that people living in poverty are high risk groups? So those types of critical thinking, we really want to try and engage with, instead of us just making assumptions about what we think is right for people. Okay, so what I have there then is what is a postgrad student? So you've unpacked the bulk of it. I'm just going to emphasize to you that the word master's or magister, which is the title of the master's degree, It has Latin roots, which means teacher, right? So you can hear that there's talk about elevation in status. So there's an expectation that you would be teaching, that you have a knowledge base that people can learn from. If we take it to the doctorate, it is currently the highest academic degree to be attained at a institution of higher learning. And it also comes from the Latin of licentiate doctorani, which then also mean that you are licensed to teach. You are made a doctor. So by implication, it's suggesting that there's a level of specialization. And there is an expectation at the PhD level that you are going to contribute to the body of knowledge and practice. So it comes with a premium. You know, you arrive making a claim that I have something to offer. And the something I have to offer is something I'm going to need your guidance and support with as a supervisor to help me offer that very thing, right? We spoke about the independence. So yes, you are an adult learner. You've already got the T-shirt for mastering that first big hurdle of adulthood, of surviving bachelor qualification. And so words like dedicated, focused, driven, curious, to contribute to civic society, to your discipline, to your field of practice, having agency, having autonomy, and having a voice are really critical descriptions. I'm hoping that you will internalize as a postgrad student in health sciences and at Mandela University. Okay, so the emotional journey, I saw that you're going to have students speak to you about this, so I'm not going to take up their time. I just got a visual that I got from the internet for you. So you can have a look at that psychological stages and how that goes. We had a moment a few weeks ago, our PhD student that she had done her first degree in social work, a master's degree in development studies, and a doctorate in education. And so when she started the doctorate in education, that first 2 supervision sessions was just tears. It was literally just crying. I can't do this. Why am I in this particular faculty? And it was part of a big NRF project, right? So coming in as a PhD student often comes with sort of like a double layer if you're joining as part of a project. And if you're joining as part of a nanoscience discipline that's new and the institution wants to drive. So the onus and I think the load on you also becomes a bit heavier, if you like. So it's really important to anchor yourself knowing that, yes, I'm arriving here, I'm arriving on merit, right? And I need to claim the space, and it will be difficult. Please don't try to underestimate it. It will be difficult, it will be tough, but it will also be joyful. And in between, you will have these roller coasters. So there are days that you wonder, why am I doing this? Only a few hours later to realize how worthwhile it is, right? So, and that, like I say, my husband is doing his PhD at the moment. So I said the lessons I've learned is you take a notebook with you everywhere. So like little small notebooks, even to the shower, right? And if you have that bright idea that comes, that water comes flushing, you hop out and you go write it down, okay? Everywhere.
Colleagues online, please mute yourself.
Okay, so yeah, so the emotional journey is real, and it really is incredibly important. As much as I'm going to speak about the relationship with your supervisor, your family is also doing a PhD at the moment, and a M. Your partner is doing PG studies with you, right? Because you're doing this means they will have less of you. They will have less time. So it really is critical that you contract with your significant others and that they understand this journey that you are on. And the contracting is for a particular period of time, and that you have agreements about what it is that would be expected, how your roles can be readjusted, can be realigned, etc. Yeah, and a typical thing that happened, I had supervision supervision scheduled with an M student this morning, and then he sent a message saying his employer won't grant him permission to attend the session. So that contracting is not just with your family, but with your employers, with everybody that's part of this tripartite alliance that you're establishing. Okay, so there's the emotional journey in color for you. Right, and then on the postgrad journey, you can really decide whether you're going to do this alone and be lonely, or whether you're going to do this alone and make sure that you surround yourself with a community. And the previous speaker, Tembeka, spoke about PG support. So in social work, our PG students have a WhatsApp group for first year PG students, a WhatsApp group for second year PG students, and that WhatsApp group, the supervisors are not part of it. And the students, I suppose, use it to moan about the supervisors too. So it's good to have an outlet space, but it's also a space where there's tracking. Like I'm busy with a literature review. This is a theoretical framework I'm using. Who else is using this framework? Can we exchange information? This is the analysis method I'm using, etc. So your community of practice becomes a really critical community for you. So don't try to do it in a lonely way. Right, so coming to the supervisor and PG student responsibilities. Okay, so this is in your PG student supervisor agreement, which every supervisor and student should sign, because this is a contracting and it's linked to the PG policy of the institution, right? So your supervisor has 3 key responsibilities: that of offering guidance, of evaluating your work, and they have a strong administrative function. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask, what's the type of guidance that you would need from a supervisor? Because it's not useful if you say, I need your guidance, right? Remember, as an autonomous, independent student, you communicate your needs clearly, directly, explicitly. So what types of guidance would you require from a supervisor? And you can invite the online colleagues in as well.
Colleagues, while you think, I'm going to give the people on the floor the first opportunity to speak, and then I will address you guys online. If nobody's going to speak to Prof, I'm going to point to you.
What would you need guidance about as a PG student, as a M student, as a doctoral student, specifically from your supervisor? What guidance will you need from them? Must I give an example?
Could it be the answer in the form of an example?
Remember, the answer is what you're suggesting the answer is. So what would you need guidance with as a PG student from your supervisor?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is correct, but in terms of guidance, maybe let's say you have a topic. Maybe let's say I want to look at children-headed households, and then I want to actually go out into these households, and then I'm not sure if that could really work out. Maybe I could talk to her or what does she think, like, and then maybe she will also maybe suggest that, no, instead of actually going out, why don't you approach organizations that work with these children-headed households? So I think that could be an example of how you would ask for guidance.
Sure. No, excellent. So guidance in terms of your proposed field of study, and that guidance could be like what location geographically, you know, for child-headed households, because if your supervisor is a subject expert, they would be able to maybe suggest that this terrain has been covered, this province has been researched, right? So, but also in terms of who are the key scholars, so who are the experts in this field, could also be guidance that you could reasonably expect, right? What else? Oh, I so wish the supervisors were here so that they can hear the low expectations that you have of us. We are off the hook, Prof. Melariri. Yes.
I think being a postgraduate student is quite difficult to explain to other people. Like my family think I'm an alien. So like the kind of guidance is your supervisor is someone who's been where you are, to just kind of lead you and understand what you are going through without you having to say, yeah. So it's just like that, yeah, that connection.
No, for sure. Um, Tembeka spoke about a project management plan earlier. And yes, you can often feel quite foreign and alien to yourself as well if you don't adhere to a plan, because you become unrecognizable at many times to yourself too, right? On the postgrad journey. So I think guidance in terms of what could a potential structure look like, right? What could a map look like would also be. What are typical? So with my students, I shared with you earlier, the emotionality at the beginning, that was quite normal. So guidance in terms of that this is a normal response to something that's quite overwhelming, you know, so that sort of guidance and reassurance is also critical. Okay. Then from the online platform, are there any contributions?
Yes,
Colleagues,
thank you. Good morning.
Okay, carry on.
I think maybe just the guidance is maybe especially at the initiation or initial stages where you're drafting your proposal, just to guide if it's in alignment, like for example, with your, whether you're doing master's or PhD level, whether your methodology or your objectives or your aim is actually in alignment. I think that kind of guidance, and also just to direct you in terms of other stakeholders like the statistician and the librarian, like how can you access the other resources? Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. So there really are essential things. You know, the journey has been traveled, so we don't need you to make particular other discoveries. So by telling you these are the resources, you are saved a lot of time and energy. So in terms of the statistician, the librarian, the referencing systems, etc., that work has been done. So don't hesitate to ask if it's not offered, okay? This orientation is important for that. But if you might have missed it or you were overwhelmed, etc., just ask to be pointed in those directions again. And then specifically, guidance in respect of, does this work? So there's also links to evaluation. From your first submission of your draft, and in social work, the students have to submit a concept proposal as part of the application. So from that first submission, your work is being evaluated. Your supervisor gives you critical feedback on the work, and then would say, no, this is pitched at the master's level. This is not doctoral level. The feedback to the student yesterday that this theory is an easy to use. It's something that's familiar to you. It's not the best fit for your question that you're asking, right? So that's that type of guidance. The second responsibility is that of evaluation, and the third one of administration. But I just want to show you the guidance and the particular things that you can reasonably expect. So guidance in terms of your supervisor serving as a bridge, right? A bridge between yourself and experts, people that they might know in other universities, in practice where you could have access to gatekeepers and so forth. Guidance in terms of critique of your work. So it is a virtuous and a continuous cycle. My my M student said to me yesterday, are you changing this again? You changing that thing again that you said last week is okay now. And I said, but now you've added the meat to the first part, right? And now we're able to look at it holistically. So really be prepared to go through this continuous process. Guidance in terms of systems that's already in place and resources. Guidance in terms of time frames. So sorry, Tembeka's on sabbatical. So Zuki and them will give you the dates of when all these committee meetings take place. So you pick a date, right, that you reasonably want to present at your departmental level. And don't do this to supervisors to submit a full proposal as a first submission. Please submit in sections that you have your introduction and your context, because that is your crispiest thought about this particular study, right? And then once you have done that introduction and context, like, what is this issue that I'm concerned about and why am I concerned about this issue? And what have I seen, that has pointed to this being a problem? What's the context against which this is being done or against which I want to do it? That's your first line. And then you go into the brief literature review that you've done. You have a whole thesis and a few years ahead of you. Please don't try to do all the literature reviews for your proposal. Do the utmost important ones. And there's some really critical tools, helpful tools that you do it in a table format that immediately helps you to analyze. I'm sure you will have some input on that too. And then, so please do it by section in a systematic way that allows you to build in an iterative way to the next one, to the next part of the proposal. Otherwise, it's lumping and dumping and then having to scourge through an entire proposal, where there isn't a golden thread, becomes more complicated to work through. And then, of course, guidance on the research process itself, very much like I've now talked you through. And yeah, I think you have to get to a level of trusting that your supervisor knows something a little bit, right? And also trusting your own judgment, trusting the critique that you bring, trusting your interest and your curiosity, trusting what you've read so that you can ask these critical questions. Because in that equalizing relationship, it's about a conversation and not an authoritative or authoritarian rather way of this is how you will do it. Then the second responsibility of a supervisor is that of evaluation. You heard me say feed forward when somebody said feedback is an expectation that you would have in terms of guidance. So with a master's student, what I often do is when you send an introduction, and people have different conventions, right? Supervisors work differently. So you might have a supervisor that gives you comments in track changes, and then you might have supervisors that rewrite a particular paragraph for you as a demonstration. The important thing is not to crush your confidence and to find a balance between what your need is and what will move and propel you forward in line with a particular date that you've set for yourself. If you feel, and this was my experience with the PhD, that I couldn't live with all these red marks and track changes, right? And then it became so overwhelming that I put it away for a few days and I thought, I just need to stomach up the courage then to go and open the document again. Please keep in mind that this is a critique of the work, not of you as the person. It's the work that's being critiqued, questions that's being asked about the work, and try to not lock your identity into your work because it can be quite disastrous for yourself, okay? So try to really find a balance. So if you're finding that you become lost in all the track changes, etc., then ask the supervisor, can you maybe just do comments on the side as opposed to, in the sections and reorganizing the flow of the work. Again, with another student, what I've done now today, I've just printed out the proposal. We're now on draft 4 and the flow is still troubling. So what I've done is I've taken a pencil and for each of the paragraphs I've done an analysis of what I see in the work. So this part speaks about definition of something. That part speaks about the reasons for that. That part speaks about the risk for that. So now she can see that the issue of a risk on a topic is scattered around 5 pages. So now she can go and reorganize it in that way herself. Because I've tried to do it before, it's not working now on draft 4. I'm following another method, right? So you're also responsive to what the student is needing, but then realizing that this would take a bit longer. So it's really important that in that first conversation that you speak about what will work for you and what won't work for you. And to also be flexible enough, because what works for you in the first month might not work for you in the second month. To say, now, okay, my skin is toughened a bit now, okay? So we can move to the next level. It's developmental stages in being a PG student, okay? So be open to having that conversation. In terms of the evaluation role then is, the supervisor needs to keep track of changes. So what we do with my students, we say draft 1 and the date, draft 2 and the date, okay? And then on my wall, there's a map, student name, draft submitted by student, and then I count so many weeks. We have a 3-week turnaround time. If we can do it faster, then so we try. Feedback to be submitted to students. So there's a way of tracking, and you are encouraged to do the same as well. Okay, so it's evaluation of both time frames, evaluation of the content and of the work. Evaluation also of examiners. Your supervisors are the ones that propose examiners. So supervisors have to really look at the professional arena and look at who is knowledgeable, who are experts in this field, and find the best fit of examiners for their students' work. For PhD students, you have 1 international examiner and 2 South African ones. And then M students have 2 examiners, right? All external. We don't examine the work ourselves anymore. The most your supervisor do at the PhD level is to write an evaluation report, a summary report, when your work is submitted for evaluation. Then they also do evaluation in terms of your timeframes, like I said, negotiated dates, and then mapping it to your committee dates. And a student said to me yesterday, I said, we've now missed the next date as well for the departmental review. And then the student says to me, so what is the next date now? So now, because we've been at this for a while, I'm saying to the student, consult the document I've sent to you with the dates. Then you guide me. Can you hear the independence? So instead of me now saying, this is the next date as a supervisor, that independence is now demanded, right? That I've suggested dates, we've been working towards it, we haven't met the time frame. You guide now on what that time frame looks like. Okay, so be open to that negotiations as well. Then the supervisor role in terms of administration, and this is really for the supervisors to hear, but for you to hold the supervisors accountable. Your supervisor is supposed to check that the details that you have on your PG, the U24 form that you completed, if you've said part-time studies, but then you've applied for a bursary that gets you, that's only for full-time students, your supervisor has to pick up on those discrepancies and are responsible for letting the research directorate know, right? They're also responsible for ensuring, and this is joint responsibility with the students, okay? Ensuring the correctness of your title, both on the proposal and when the final document is submitted. And like we've had to do this morning with Sia, that he said, these are your names of your students with their titles for graduation in the booklet, check that it is correct. So it really is critical for supervisors to do that. You have to submit your progress report to the supervisors, and they have a section that they have to complete every 6 months. So twice a year, there's a progress report by the faculty that you will have a notification about. You first start the process, and then it is directed to your supervisor's inbox. And the same with scholarship and funding bodies, right? The students start the process and it goes to the supervisor. The timeous appointment of examiners. So if you are going to submit your thesis for examination or for possible graduation in April the next year, your supervisor should have made sure that your examiners are appointed in October, by October of the previous year. So please don't hesitate to ask, have you already appointed the examiners? You're not expected or supposed to know who the examiners are, but it's within your right to ask. I'm just double checking. Have you submitted? Have you found examiners? Have you submitted to the committee? Then a critical one is life happens, right? You might find that there are really personal things that's happening while you're busy with your studies. And then instead of trying to push against all odds, to make considered decisions about, should I proceed with the studies this year? And if you decide, having weighed up all the options, having discussed it with your supervisor, do not hesitate to speak about keeping your studies in abeyance for a period of time, for a year. Okay, so those conversations are critical because it's the responsible thing to do rather than to try and prove resilience. Resilience often is knowing when to check out for a while, okay, and when to pause. So the administration in terms of the paperwork that must be submitted for abeyance, the supervisor helps you to get the forms from faculty administration, and then those forms are submitted, and they also guide you on the supporting documents. Okay, then all of those responsibilities of the supervisor, the students are co-responsible for checking in that those things are being upheld, right? And so you'll see the overlap with the student, that your responsibility is to uphold your registration and satisfactory progress. So that means submitting your progress reports, keeping supervision times. I always say to my students, with lectures, we have a scheduled timetable. We know the venue, the time, we know when exams are, we know the number of assessments, etc. Yeah. But unless the PG students sit with us and say, this is how frequently I wish to see you, and we map those dates and times, you're not going to be on the schedule. Okay, so it really is important that apart from the actual registration and the paperwork you have to do, that you hold the supervisor accountable for having a regular schedule for you and with you. That you are responsible for the evaluation of your work. So that critical thinking we spoke about. One of our professors, now esteemed Professor Mark Watson, said that he would always ask his student, and he's supervising the days before digital work, right? So the student would bring the printed work, and then he would hold out his hand, and he would say to the student, are you sure you want to submit this for review? Are you really sure? And he said 9 out of 10 times the student would take it back and say, no, I'll bring it next week. So please be your own critical scholar, right? Ask yourself, would I want to read that work? Okay. And then be mindful about what you submit and when you submit it. The planning of the research project is your primary responsibility. Keep a diary, bring the project plan, literally have it. Make sure you have a space on your supervisor's wall where your project map is printed and pasted up so that there's a presence in your absence, right? And that work happens in that way. Carrying out the research project is your responsibility, and maintaining of a working relationship with your supervisor. So with my students, I know who their partners are and what those typical challenges in their lives are, etc. That's just the nature of the relationship. It is, for those of you that are helping professionals, you know, relationship is the vehicle of change, right? Rather than fancy techniques and theories that you use. So similarly, relationship doesn't mean that we acknowledge or excuse excuses. It's having an understanding and working through things that might get in our way. Okay. Then in the last 2 minutes, I just want to speak about what supervision is not. So an abuse of a power imbalance is definitely what supervision is not, where you are scolded or you are told that this work is below standard and you have a two-way traffic, a one-way traffic of your work being critiqued in that way and you're not having a voice. Supervision is definitely also not about being accommodated with your supervisor saying, oh, I've got 11 students, I'll see if I can squeeze you in. It's not your problem that the supervisor has 11 students, right? You've been accepted as a PG student, which means that the university has a responsibility to serve you. And so there should be that reciprocal responsibility to keep to the time frames. And then I've just put out some other roles and responsibilities, which matches what I've said earlier. So I'm not going to work through that again. And then I've put down a few factors that can facilitate and debilitate your progress, but certainly having a strong internal drive, we know is what will propel us. And looking at your supervisor as the one that will critique my work and give me feedback, that laid back, expecting others to say is definitely going to hold you back. Okay, and then the blame games back and forth and rigidity will definitely keep you back. And then we were going to plan exercise, but it would have excluded the online people. So yeah, I think for supervisors, if you can have a supervisor that's there in the authoritative supervision quadrant, a supervisor that is demanding, right? That you keep to deadlines and you similarly keep them to deadlines, and a supervisor that is responsive. That is the ideal phase and space to be in. Okay. In conclusion, 33 seconds, it's your journey. Make sure you are well traveled and you receive and produce the quality that you deserve and that your research participants deserve. And keep in mind that the process is as important as the product. Thanks, everybody. Okay. I just want to say that it is for a institution that has a humanizing pedagogy, this depositing type of knowledge system really doesn't work, right? Where we just deposit all this information and there isn't much interaction. So please do list the questions that you have, and I'm quite happy for us to find ways to respond to it as well. Okay.
Colleagues, while the next presenter is setting up, I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you want to stretch your legs. Don't leave the room. Stretch your legs, refresh yourself 30 seconds, and then we'll give the next speaker a chance. Thank you.
Apologies. How can we get a hold of Prof. Goliath? I still had a few questions to ask her. Thank you.
So Berthlin, will you send the email address? I'm also quite happy to listen to questions now whilst people are stretching legs. Would that work?
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof, for a great presentation. I have 3 questions. The first one you mentioned about a progress tracking sheet that you have. It sounds quite interesting. If you can please, when you have time, just share with us, because the one that we have is just the project timelines. But I think this progress tracking sheet with the supervisor in terms of submissions of version 1 or version 2, I think it will help. The second one, you spoke about the research title. At what stage are you not allowed to amend your research title? So for example, if one started with a research title that they say, I'm investigating something, and then you want to maybe amend it to say you're reviewing it, at what stage can you not change the research title? Is it before the proposal submission to the faculty or at the departmental stage? And then the third one, if there is still an appointment of a co-supervisor in progress, are you still allowed, or can you still submit your proposal and omit the co-supervisor and at the co-supervisor at the end? Or the first time when you submit your proposal to the faculty, it has to have all the co-supervisors and supervisors? Thank you.
Okay, so with regards to the second question, The title, you should ideally have concluded on a title by the time your work serves at your departmental level. Remember that your proposal goes through three layers of evaluation, right? A departmental layer where you will get feedback often on a title and suggestions to alter the title. Then at the faculty level, where people outside of your faculty, in the faculty outside of your discipline might also have suggestions about the title. And then at the Rec H level, people outside of your faculty might also have suggestions about the title. So as a student, ideally, you should have made up your mind about the title by the time you submit for your first round of defense. But don't marry the title because you might still have feedback from those three layers. I'm examining a PhD study at the moment where I'm proposing a change to a title. So even at examination level, you might still get feedback about changes, but your question was about from the student side, right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Prof. Thank you.
Okay. Then your second question was about the co-supervisors. That's a conversation to be had with the main supervisor. If your co-supervisor is on board from as early as possible, it helps with that. Often people also break up the responsibility based on, so your co-supervisor might be a methodology expert or more knowledgeable on the methodology, and your main supervisor may be on the content or the focus area, but it is a conversation to be had with the main supervisor. Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
And I'll share the map that I suggested.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, colleagues. Apologies. The next speaker, Ms. Ferre, is going to touch on just the postgrad journey through an international lens. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marilyn Vere, and I am a postgraduate student with the Environmental Health Department. I'm in my second year, going into my third in May. So it's quite an honor for me to be invited to talk about my PhD journey. I would like to thank the RD, and I would also like to thank the my supervisors who have sort of nudged me in the right way to be where I am today. And the journey has been tough. It has been hard, but also I cannot lie, there have also been highs throughout the journey. And I would like to thank the Lord Almighty for giving me the opportunity to be here healthy and happy, as you can see. I would like also to thank my family for supporting me. Being an international student, guys, it's not easy away from home. So I'm just going to give you a little bit about myself. I'm from Zimbabwe. That's where I grew up. That's where I was born. Before coming here, I'd never left the country. It was my first time leaving Zimbabwe when I came here. So it was really challenging for me to leave and come to a new area where I had to reestablish myself and delve into my study. My area of research is public health. I'm with the Environmental Health Department, like I said, and I'm specializing in neglected tropical diseases, specifically schistosomiasis and soil-transmitted ehrlichiosis. So my journey to a PhD started when I was doing my undergraduate degree with the University of Zimbabwe. And I did a BSc honors in biochemistry, which started in 2014 and I completed in 2018. Then during the time we're supposed to be attached with an industry, and I was working for the African Institute for Biomedical Science and Technology. This is when I fell in love with research, because while I was an intern there, we would do field works, would do research, would do lab work. And for me, I was still an undergrad. It really brightened up my eyes, and I knew that that's the path that I wanted to follow. So after that, after I graduated with my honors degree, I then went on to be a research assistant for a non-governmental organization in Zimbabwe called TIBA. They specialize on neglected tropical diseases as well. So I then went on into the public health area where we were going, for example, into rural areas. We're doing WASH programs. We were teaching children. We were doing all sorts of things pertaining to neglected tropical diseases. So I knew that that's where I wanted to put my focus in career-wise. So after that, I then did my master's in biotechnology, which took 2 years at the University of Zimbabwe. So after finishing my master's, I graduated in December. My supervisor during my master's actually told me that there was a funding opportunity for a PhD in South Africa. I had never heard of Nelson Mandela University. It was my first time. So I was excited. I was about to leave home. You know, when you're a child and growing up at home, your parents are always like on your case. For me, it was like, thank you, I'm going. So I jumped at it, and thank God it was in my field area that I was interested in. I was to come here and work on schistosomiasis as well. So I jumped at it, and I was interviewed by my supervisors now, Prof. Melariri, Dr. Viuma, and Dr. Ochola. And thank God they accepted me into the program. And then I was registered with the university. So getting a place here, guys, was easier than the process of actually coming here. Because as an international student, after being accepted, you have to apply for SAQA. And this was 2022, just after COVID. All the offices were closed. The SAQA offices were closed. The visa offices were closed. But I was on a time crunch because I had already registered with the university. So everything was like sort of on hold. I had to find a way to come to South Africa, go to the SAQA offices, beg them to do my to verify my tertiary qualifications that I got from the University of Zimbabwe, because you cannot apply for a visa if you are not verified, and they have to sort of convert them to the South African equivalents before you get to apply for a visa. So that process was really daunting. It was hard, and it went on for about a year. So it was crazy, but thank God I got it finally. I applied for my visa and I got it. But also during that time, I got to use the time to start writing my proposal. I developed my proposal. It was marked at the department level. It was marked FPGSC. It went through. There were revisions that kept coming, kept going back, kept coming with the liaison person. And sometimes it became very hard because there were so small things and big things that wanted to be fixed. But as a student, you have no choice. We had to go back, fix everything until it was perfect. And now I'm happy, honestly, because everything that was corrected, I can see now as I'm doing my analysis that it really was helpful for me. Okay, so like I said, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I fell in love with lab work. I was supervised by Professor Stoleniang. I would run to her lab during free periods. I would run to her lab after school doing studies. Then Prof. Taka also did the same to me. He gave me an opportunity to explore my passion, because you really have to know what you want to do if you're gonna go into postgraduate studies, because that desire, that push, that dream is what's gonna take you through. Because it's different from when you're being taught sitting on a desk, being told what to do. When you come here, it's all dependent on your drive, on your push, and your will. So you need to make sure that the area that you are gonna venture into is what you really are interested in. So after I got my visa in November, end of November, I then moved to South Africa in February 2023. And I would like to thank my supervisors. They actually went out to find a place for me to live. That is rare, guys. I've spoken to other students who came here. Supervisors don't do that. They just throw you into the deep end. But my supervisors, my supervisors took their time off their busy schedules to go out and find me a place to stay. Guys, I would like to thank God for that. And I would also like to thank my colleagues. They are not here. They helped me navigate my way around the college, though sometimes it was difficult. But with them, I don't speak Xhosa. I'm not from here. I speak in Shona. So everything was sort of difficult for me, but they actually made it possible for me to quickly acclimatize to the environment. And also the wind. The wind was too much. From the day I landed on the airport, I'm like, oh.
So in 2023, I submitted my, I developed my proposal and it was approved by the FPGS in February. Then I submitted it for REC-H and it was approved in April. Then I am working with school-going children. So I had to apply to the Department of Education and I got that after 3 months, I think in June. Then now I had to start my field work. So I think I need to just take you through what I'm doing, what I'm studying right now. My topic is to assess the prevalence of schistosomiasis, to analyze the risk factors that are associated with its transmission, and also the biomarkers that are associated with schistosomiasis infection in school-going children, Nelson Mandela Bay. So these are minors. So we have to get consent. We had to, because now I'm done with that, with sample collection. I'm actually now doing data compilation. I'm also done with the lab work. So we had to get consent from the gatekeepers, which are the principals. And after that, we had to get consent from the parents because you cannot access minors without consent from the parents. After that, then we started actually doing the sampling. So I'm done with my sampling, finished in February. Now I'm finishing up lab work and data compilation. So guys, throughout my journey, my supervisors have held my hand through every process from the beginning. There are times when it was hard, especially when I was waiting for my SAQA and my visa. It was difficult because it actually took a year off of my time. But that time they pushed me to develop my proposal to get it submitted to REC-H, and I got it before I even came here. So my supervisors have always been like rescuing me from myself, because there are times when I even feel homesick and I want to go back home. And Prof is like, Marilyn, no, because last year, there was a time when I actually went home without telling her. And she was really like, you know, but from that period, she didn't give up on me. She actually managed to drag me along. And now I think I'm in the right track. So the main challenges, sorry, that I faced, like I say, I'm still facing them, but now I think I have sort of found my way around everything. It's the language, sometimes finding the cafeteria, even here at school, like when I come to the Ocean Sciences campus, I don't know where it is. I have to ask, but life has been sort of, moving now. And the weather and homesickness, it's really an emotional thing that you are here alone, you don't know anybody. I don't know anyone here, but thank God my colleagues have sort of made me feel welcome. So for the new postgraduate students, guys, Rome was not built in a day. As you're starting right now, it's important to have your timelines really sorted out in the form of a Gantt chart. For me, it helped me a lot because when you have your objectives and deliverables, you have to have something that reminds you of your next step of where you have to go next. And you have to keep yourself in check because this is now all dependent on you. No one is going to follow up and say, you haven't really written this, that, and the other. And for the PhD, you are expected to have a systematic review that you have to submit and publish, and you have to have one other manuscript published before you do your thesis. So you need to have discipline of actually making sure that your timelines are in order from the beginning, not at the end. Then you start trying to do everything at once. So I think this concludes my presentation. I would also like to thank my supervisors again. And I would also like to thank the Med Lab, Mrs. Tilly and Mrs. Lindsay for helping me through my lab work. I would like to thank my colleagues. They've been going out into the field with me, helping me with my data collection. And I would like to thank God. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's not a question. You say that you don't know anyone. I'm also from Zim, so I can be your friend. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? No questions? Okay, I'll ask my question, then I'll hand the mic to you. That's right.
Oh, okay, sure. I see there you said, actually, I just wanted you to touch a little bit on the timelines of the time when you started to develop and then when it get approved by the REG agents. How long did it take you? Because previous, I know that Tembeka has spoke a lot about it, but then she was showing a lot of data. So we just want to have an idea with you as to how long did it really take you to do that? Sure.
Thank you so much for the question. I also think like what Tembeka said, it also depends on your response time. When you get revisions from the department, how long is it taking you to send them back the revised copy? Because when you develop your proposal, you send it to your supervisors, they mark it, they give you corrections, you do them. Then it has to be sent to the department. It's approved at the department level, or it may come back with revisions as well. So it's up to you, the student, to quickly revise your document, send it back. After the department, it has to go to FPGSC. At FPGSC, it may come back with corrections as well. You have to be quick about it if you want your things to move quickly. So for me, I think from the time that I started developing the proposal in May 2022, I got it approved by RECAGE April 4th, 2023. So it had to go through the department, FPGSC, and then RECAGE.
Just a second question.
Sorry, online. We'll get to you guys now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope I answered you. Yeah, from May to April from May 2022 to April 2023, because it was approved on the 4th of April.
Right, we've got a question online.
Thank you, sir. Marilyn, thank you so much for the motivation. I just want to find out, how can we reach you? You sound like somebody who really can motivate somebody to reach their goals. Thank you.
I'll give Miss Batlin. Miss Batlin will send you my email and my phone number. You can reach me. She can send out an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a remark. It seems that your transition to South Africa relied a great deal on your supervisors being welcome to it. What happens to the other student that doesn't have a supervisor that wants to go to that extra length to make sure that you are accommodated? Like I wonder if there is a system that allows students from international borders to come and transition in a lot smoother, or are they left to fend for themselves?
I'm sure the university has some sort of, I'm not sure. I'm sure the RD will be happy to assist you with that question. But for me, I was blessed enough to have those supervisors who helped me through everything.
Yeah, I'd also like to mention that the international office helps a lot. They do. The follow-up on SAQA is just that they may not be updating you regularly, but they do follow up. And instances where maybe the university was previously approved in SAQA, they would actually provide those evidence to the SAQA admin, to just say this had been done before. So they do a lot to assist. Okay, so just to keep that at back of your mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Any other questions on the floor, online? No questions? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Miss Els? Miss Els, are you there?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
Outside, are you able to share your presentation from your end?
Yes, let me try. You can let me know if you can see it. Just there. Looking for it. Okay, I found it. Okey-dokes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. You could maybe go slideshow mode.
There we go. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Obviously, I can't see hands or any questions, so you can either just interject at any time or we can ask questions at the end. So my name is Lisa Els, and I'm going to just share my master's journey with all of you. So just a little bit of an introduction. Thank you to the university for inviting me to take part in this orientation program. Thank you to you, the students, for your time and for allowing me to share my journey with you. I always get quite excited about it. And congratulations on your decision to further your studies. This is probably one of the best decisions you could make for yourselves. So in this little brief time, I'll be sharing my topic with you, the process, some of the challenges I faced, the highlights, and finally some tips to guide you along your own study journeys. And I logged in a bit earlier, so I've heard the last two speakers, and so much of it is similar. So clearly, it's a very similar journey for everybody and also very different in other ways. So who am I? Currently, I'm in the role of a nurse manager at a private mental health clinic in East London. I'm a wife and a mother to a wonderful son. And so just to, reiterate that being a student isn't our only role, and that's where it becomes quite tough. So I graduated with a BCur degree from then University of Port Elizabeth in 1991, and straight from there I went into the private hospital industry. In 2000, I obtained an advanced university diploma in nursing management from the University of Potchefstroom, and in 2003 I obtained an advanced university diploma in nursing education from the same university. So I'm using the old name, so I'm really dating myself and giving away my age. So between 2003 and 2009, I held numerous management positions. I was also a clinical training specialist, and I dabbled a bit in infection control. But I also continued my studies and undertook numerous short courses, mostly in the management side of nursing. But in 2009, I stepped out of my senior role and went back onto the floor into an intensive care unit. And really, this was possibly the best period of my whole nursing career. I saw life, death, despair, and hope all rolled into one. And it was really a huge growth time for me. But true to my spirit of being a lifelong learner, I then completed the advanced diploma in critical care nursing through the company that I was working with. And right now, who am I? Went back into management and training, and I started this management role again. And I really believe to be the best possible version of oneself, one needs to continually grow and look for opportunities to develop yourself in whatever way possible. So also as a nurse manager, for me to be influential and assist others to be the best that they can be, I decided that my study days were not over. And so I find myself now in this position, telling you all about my journey in my postgrad studies. And I enrolled for a master's degree at a local university. However, both previous speakers spoke about the relationship with supervisors and where you see yourself. And so it didn't really work out for me, and I stopped midway during that year because things happen. But the following year, I enrolled with my alma mater, which was then NMU and now NMU, for a Master of Nursing in Research. So you can see that I've gone right through the whole circle, and Nelson Mandela University has certainly been my university of choice right through from undergrad to where I am now. So I know I heard a question around choosing topics, and with me, this changed many times. It started with patient satisfaction because this was an area of interest to me as it related to my workspace. But it changed numerous times and slowly, really very slowly, it evolved into my final topic, which is the unit manager's perceptions of compassion fatigue among nurses at private hospitals in the Eastern Cape. And again, choosing the topic was guided by my supervisor and the co-supervisor, as well as literature I was reading. And both previous speakers also spoke about choosing a topic that you're passionate about. What blows your hair back? What floats your boat? What really thrills you? And only then will you find yourself 100% invested in your study. My supervisor also changed in the early stages of my studies, and this took some adapting to as well, both from my new supervisors and from my side, and building a relationship and developing a communication method which suited us both. Remember, I'm not a foreign student, but I'm not based in Port Elizabeth, so everything I did was via, the internet. So I met my supervisor once in person. So it's an extremely important part of your study journey, and it's a key to having a successful completion of your degree, this relationship that you build with your supervisor. So my study was conducted via WhatsApp voice notes and Zoom then, and then we changed to MS Teams. I only met my supervisor and co-supervisor once, as I said, in person, and that was when I actually came down to Port Elizabeth or Quebec to present my proposal. My proposal was accepted, but there were many changes needing to be done. And once approved by the ethics committee at the university, I then had to obtain approval from the company where I was conducting the study to start my data collection. So I think the previous speaker, Prof, spoke about, the track changes, the red all over your work that you receive back, and this is very real. So I used to see the email arriving, and I'd only open it when I was in a good space. And also very important that I learned was that this is not a personal, it's not personal evaluation. It's evaluating the work. And the better that is done and the stricter that is, the easier it is to obtain your degree. So once I'd achieved all of the approvals and ethics from the ethics committees, I could begin my data collection. But then something that has never happened to any of us ever was COVID-19. So you can plan and plan and plan, but life and the world doesn't stop for your studies. So initially I had thought of a focus group to collect my data, but then obviously this couldn't happen with COVID-19 restrictions. I also had to wait right until the end of the 5th wave to collect the data, because the participants I had in my study were nurses, and they were really in the midst of a pandemic in one of the busiest private hospitals in the country at that time. So I had to respect their limitations and their time. Also, I had to then decided to change how I was going to collect my data, and I did it via MS Teams, and it took the form of individual interviews. And really, there were many advantages to this. We were able to unmask, because then I could help, it would help me pick up on nonverbal cues. The transcriptions and recording capabilities of MS Teams are amazing, and that really assisted me because I could listen to the recordings as often as I needed to. And really, it really enhanced the quality of the data I collected. I knew my data back to front, and so I really could engage with it. So, things come our way. It's very important to find the positives in it. However, there were always challenges. There always will be. I come from a clinical, non-academic setting, and there was very little support for studies. People support us, but they're not really aware of the sacrifice and the hard work that goes into it. And Prof spoke about being lonely and alone, and really that is a choice you will make and you can make. I also come from a very demanding workspace. I have a position that often has 11-hour days, work 24/7, and I'm on call 365 days of the year. So regardless of what work I was doing, studies had to fit in between. And yeah, I was a healthcare worker amid a global pandemic, so you can imagine that it was not a normal circumstance. And then, of course, lockdown. And I think we all thought lockdown was going to be 3 weeks. Can remember it clearly. It's almost to the, it was in March. So we remember that clearly, I'm sure all of you. Remember for us as well, I'm a nurse, so we had a fear of COVID-19. I had to be aware of my own fear, that of my staff and of my family. I was doing distance learning. There were IT challenges, and I always joke and say that I'm better with a ventilator than a computer. So sometimes what took somebody that's really good with a computer would take them 5 minutes, would take me a whole lot longer. And of course, for all of us, the previous student coming all the way from Zim and being homesick, we all have personal challenges. I have a family I have to take care of. I've got very elderly parents. 3 weeks into lockdown, my laptop and all my data was stolen. Everything that I had saved was gone. I literally had 3 years worth of work gone. 3 years worth of reading, and my supervisor and co-supervisor started emailing me back everything I had emailed so that I could put it back together again. So that was a huge, and I remember standing at my workplace and one of my colleagues said, "You are not giving up." So to this day, I'm thankful to her for that. Of course, I also had illness in the family and bereavement. So really, in short, the world does not stop whilst you're studying. But I wouldn't be talking to you today with a degree, postgrad degree, if there were not highlights. So I really, really loved the whole process. I love the feeling of personal growth. I love the feeling of knowing that I've added to the body of knowledge and just being part of the greater good. Using skills, using knowledge to make a difference to somebody out there. So that's really what my study was about. It was not on a personal level. It was not for it. The accolades and the degree is wonderful. It's not changed anything for me in my workspace, but it's made a big difference for me on a personal level. So you also need to decide why you are doing this. What is it about it for you that is important? For me, it gave me a feeling of empowerment. Knowledge is power, and of course, improved self-esteem. Lifelong learning. I learned new things. I'd never used Zoom. I'd never used MS Teams. So I really am giving my age away. But learning the research language, learning to write in a scientific manner. I'm very conversational, and I can probably write stories, but to have to then make it scientific and was a huge challenge for me, and I had many, many corrections every single time I sent my work in. I built relationships with my participants and my supervisor and co-supervisor. And to our previous speaker's point, I cannot emphasize the importance of this relationship enough. My supervisor and co-supervisor are what kept me going, and they engaged in and kept me engaged in what could have been otherwise quite a lonely journey. I also had amazing buy-in from the participants, and to this day, I found that extremely humbling. And I really have vowed that if I ever get a research, somebody asks me to take part in it, I'm much quicker at responding, because I know how hard it is when you are needing help from your participants. I also had amazing support from my fellow managers, and they helped to assist in setting up the interviews with a laptop, finding a private space for the participants to keep it confidential. And that really meant a lot to me. So just some tips. You need to commit to the process. You need to be patient with yourself and the process. It is not easy, and it would not be a postgraduate degree if it was easy. As my current supervisor said, and the previous speaker said, Rome was not built in a day. You need to be consistent, set out timelines, make set times per your own schedule. It must be realistic, and I'm sure you all know about the SMART goals. It must not be how it works for other people. You need to make it work for you. I'm an early morning person, so I would go to bed early and get up early in the morning and sit there when everybody was still sleeping and work on my laptop. You need to find a space in your home. You need to set goals and stick to them wherever possible. However, flexibility is important because, as I alluded to in my previous slides, things happen and things change. You get sick, deadlines at work change if you are studying part-time. So be flexible, but stick to your goals as much as you can. Very important to find a support person, whoever that may be, and communicate often with your supervisor around your topic, your concerns. I will just sometimes pop an email and say, oh, I'm feeling stressed. I'm not feeling it. And then they will just put me back on track again. I think it's important that between you and your supervisor, you know what space you're in. And read. I attended a research meeting the other day. Right in the beginning, all you're doing is reading, and it feels like you're doing nothing. But that's really a very, very important part of your whole study. You read well in the beginning and you really crunch down in the beginning. It makes it so much easier at the end. So in conclusion, you must enjoy every minute. Listen to your supervisors. They are the experts and they will get you over the winning line. Remember, you are a student now. You haven't got your master's or your PhD, you're a student. The initial hard work makes the end much easier. And then understand that this is not a quick process. The sooner you understand this, the less anxious and frustrated you will be. And again, I said if Rome was built in a day, graduation would be a daily occurrence. And finally, be proud to be adding to the world of research in your own small way. As Mother Teresa said, not all of us can do great things, but we can do great things with small love, with great love. So yeah, all the very best. I'm not sure if there are any questions from your side. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much. And thank you once again for allowing me time to share my journey with you all.
Thank you, Marcels. We'll take questions on the floor and we'll give the opportunity to the colleagues online. No questions on the floor? Anything that stands out? Maybe a remark, not a question?
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question. With regards to the interviews that you conducted, I know I'm still in the initial stages of my proposal, but then I just wanted to ask for your advice for someone who would be conducting interviews with other healthcare professionals, and I'm going to be doing this face to face. What would you advise me to look out for? And also in terms of structuring my questions, maybe for my interviews, what is it that is something that you would advise from your experience to look out for, and things that obviously I shouldn't have to do that maybe might make my participants or the people that I will be interviewing a little bit uncomfortable?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It's a very important question because how you do your interviews is how you're going to elicit the data, and then how you're going to structure the rest of your study. So that's a very important question. I must tell you that it is quite exhausting and it doesn't come easily. For somebody like me who is in mental health and it sort of is part of our daily work, it is really, I remember my supervisor saying that you feel quite drained at the end of it. So be patient with yourself. And what I found as well is as each interview went, it just got better and better, just got easier and easier. I think important to look at things like body language, pick up on how they are feeling, look at your own body language, because I do believe that they also pick up from us. Remember, you're the expert in what you are wanting to gain. So what's also very important, what I learned in the process, is you need to know, you need to really do your literature research well. And you need to know what you are wanting to find out, and so that you base your questions correctly, so that the data you get is rich and you can work from what you get. So you need to be very well prepared with your questions. You need to make field notes, write down as you're chatting. Remind them that you are writing down, that you will try and make eye contact in between. Remind them, of course, about the recording. Get that permission. Obviously, that's just a standard ethical question. That's a standard ethical need. But I think important to watch their body language, and should they start looking like they're becoming uncomfortable, to maybe steer away, or sometimes you have to stop an interview. Important that you know what you're looking for when you go into your interview, and try and relax, try and make it conversational, try and let them feel at ease. It's difficult for me to say, but you will see it just comes easily. I'm not sure if that really helps you at all.
Thanks so much, Marcels. Anyone else online? No one? Okay. Marcels, we've got one question from Zinkle, wanting to know what your plan is after completion of the PhD.
So I did, yeah. So I finished my master's I graduated in 2023, and because it was sort of, I think it was March, April, it was too late to start my PhD. So, but I know what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to do, so I started reading, and I've registered, and I've had 3 or 4 of my meetings this year already. So busy planning my proposal and early stages of my PhD. Yeah, so it didn't stop. And that's what's the last message I want to leave with everybody is, don't stop, just keep going. It's worth every minute of it. And it's not about financial gain or status. In my space, it means nothing in my workspace, but it means so much to me on a personal level. So yes, simply I'm studying again. Watch this space.
Thank you, Marcels. Colleagues, that's all we have time for. For the sake of time, we're going to have to move over to our last speaker, who's going to address us on student wellness. So yeah, sit tight. We're almost at the lunch break. I know everybody's looking forward to lunch. All right, Ms. Vada, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Afternoon, everybody. I'm Amina Vauda. I am a counseling psychologist at Mtongeni Student Wellness, and I'm based on South Campus. So today I'm just going to briefly take you through basically the services that are available to students that we offer at Mtongeni. Okay. Okay, so who are we? We basically have a few trained people. So it's your clinical, your counseling, and research psychologists. Then we also have registered counselors, and we have intern psychologists that are basically in training. And we're all registered with the HPCSA. And then also, obviously, our staff, our administrative staff, understand the whole issue of confidentiality and being discreet when dealing with students. We are on 5 of the campuses. So we're on North, 2nd Avenue, South, George, and Mission Vale. And just for your own interest, on 2nd Avenue, in the old ceramics building, North Campus on D Block, Mission Vale, the admin building, and then South Campus, we on in Imbizweni. So what is the aim of Mtonjeni? It's basically a service that we are providing to students, all registered students. It's a free service. It's about providing support. It's about providing guidance and psychological counseling for students in terms of gaining a whole holistic success at the end of the day. Okay. So it's all confidential. We adhere to the confidentiality standards that we need to have for HPCSA. But under those circumstances, obviously, if there are emergencies, things like that, where we need to break that, then when in life-threatening situations, we do break the confidentiality if we need to step in. The records is not part of your student records, so it doesn't show anywhere. It's exclusive to us, basically. So what do we have? We have different formats that we obviously try to engage with students. We have our electronic media, so we are on, for example, Instagram, and then we have pamphlets, also on Facebook, yeah. We have workshops that we do run, more psychoeducational workshops that we run weekly under the different campuses. So it depends on also the campus and the need of that campus. So we try to look at what is the need of the campus students based there, and we try to get a workshop there running. We do group counseling. It's a group therapy session. So it's basically people that been identified by a counselor that would benefit from a group setting. And I'll get to the reason why we're trying to take that off in terms of group counseling. And then obviously the most common one is the individual counseling, the one-on-one counseling. So what do we cover? We basically cover the psychological well-being of the student. So that's your overall, your psychoeducation groups. It's your, we've now started having talks, for example, in an auditorium with students on various topics. We started now having a little slot on Madibas as well, that we basically talk on various topics as well. And then obviously the basic individual counseling falls under that. And then we do career counseling. So some guidance if needed in terms of where students want to go. And then psychology of learning is basically your assessment based. So for example, if concession or some form of intellectual assessment needs to be done, or your learning difficulties, that sort of thing. So this is the reason why we trying to push the group counseling, because it says 16 psychologists, actually 16 counselors, because remember I said registered counselors and intern psychologists as well. And we're actually not 16, we are 14. There's 2 vacant posts. So that's 16 posts across all the campuses. So at the moment we're sitting on 14 and you're trying to service over 30,000 pupils, students, it gets a bit dicey. So you try to, but it's not there yet with the group counseling. Most people tend to prefer one-on-one. Some of the reasons why people come. This is not an exhaustive list. It does not mean if you don't fall under the list, you can't come. It's just some of the more popular reasons that students have come. Sometimes family challenges. We have stress-related issues. For those of you obviously doing master's, PhD, the stress levels get hectic when the deadlines start coming and we have put it off for a long period of time. If I take for myself, we have to do masters to be registered as a psychologist. So research, was never my forte. So that was always a stress-related issue for me. And then you have obviously your anxiety issues, your basic symptoms that students, anxiety symptoms that they display. Under obviously some are medicated, some needs to be medicated. So we also look at that and we try to refer you where need be if, for example, you need to be placed on medication same goes with the depressive symptoms. Then obviously bereavement. We all experience loss at some point in time in our life, close people, and it impacts on how we function in our day-to-day life. And then you have your general trauma in terms of, crime-related or just childhood trauma, can also impact, can throw us out, the previous speaker spoke about day-to-day life, things happen in our life that we can't always control. And that impacts on where we are in the process of completing what we need to. And then improving academic performance, a lot of times students come in because you guys are on the higher levels, so you've gone through that student life, but generally the undergrads, they come to university, they want to have fun first and then realize, oops, there's such a thing as, I need a certain score to get to write an exam and pass and everything else. And then just general emotional development, because sometimes we go through things that we just need to learn how to manage our emotions. Unfortunately, there is no recipe to get rid of emotions. You're going to experience it. You're going to go through it. It's about how do I deal with it? How do I let it not impact on me to such an extent that I am almost frozen or struggle to deal with things. Relationships, generally intimate, but there are others. Like I said, this is the top 10. It's not necessarily the entire list. And then just motivation to complete that, just motivation to submit what you need to submit, motivation to actually get going, doing what I need to do. We do have peer helpers as well that kind of assist us. They generally, though, your undergrad students. So they are supervised, they help with stress related, because sometimes students want to speak to students. So this is a nice way for them to get to us or get help as well. So how do you actually get, if you want to come and see one of us? We've started doing what we call an intake booking system. So there's various intake slots during the week, Monday to Thursday, across the campuses at various times. And then it's a 15-minute slot. So it's really just to kind of attain what is going on, what is the picture that's being created, and how we can possibly assist you. Do we need to refer you? Do we refer you or assign you to a counselor? Is for example, the group sessions maybe a better bet for you, or whatever the case? So it's really just a quick interview to kind of see what's happening. And they all happen. And we are obviously there Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. This is just some of the intake slots. You see they vary across the campuses. South Campus is the bigger campus. We are more staff there. We are also tend to be the busier one. So we have a bit more slots than necessarily the other campuses. But yeah, so where you have your lectures or things like that, that's where you can go, but it doesn't really. And then we do also offer virtual counseling as well, if that is something. And I think specifically with postgrad, you may not necessarily be on campus all the time. You are working, that sort of thing. So maybe the virtual might work better as well. So we do intake, for example, virtual slots as well. And then we do deal with emergencies. So during office hours, so that we normally have what we call an ET slot. So somebody's on duty every single day. There's somebody that's basically on duty, even though we basically open up one slot, an hour slot. But having said that, emergency is not time bound. So, but it's more about there's that slot available if the counselor gets booked up and we need someone to see, then there's somebody that we can kind of say, come at 12 o'clock, come at whatever time is available there. And then obviously there's the after hour emergency lines that you can contact if need be. There's various ones, your lifeline, your gender-based violence, your suicide lines and things like that. And they all run and they're all confidential as well. And that's it from me. Any questions?
So we'll take questions on the floor, and then I'll go online. I'll come to you, Nasser. Start at the back.
Hi. My question, it's not related to the presentation. So I also want to become a counseling psychologist one day. So I wanted to ask, what could be your advice to someone who like they want to also go through the same route that you went? And also, would you say there is a certain criteria that they use in their master's counseling? So to say you must have this and that and that and that. And that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded question. Let's put it this way. They say life experience, whatever that means, yeah, is debatable. But I think it's what you bring, what do you, and for me, I would say it's about, do you know yourself? Because if you are assisting other people, you need to be comfortable with who you are, and that portrays out. Obviously, life experience, what you have gone through, how you have dealt with those challenges that you've had. It's not an easy thing, because at the end of the day, they do only accept, pretty much all the universities, they only accept a limited number of students. But once you're in, then yeah, it's a good road to go through. But the getting in can be a bit difficult, and just don't give up. Just keep trying, you know, year after year if it needs to be. And don't narrow yourself necessarily to one university, because that's, you're shooting yourself in the foot like that. So yeah, it just, there's no real recipe. Nowadays, they used to say even, okay, I'm registered for quite a few years. But I mean, it was always about age was a factor and life experience was a factor. But if I see students coming through, we had youngsters as well. So it's how you come across, how you deal with the challenges that you've had. And even if you didn't have challenges, what type of person you are, what do you portray? How do you come through in terms of that interview, or your, what is it, the letter that you write as well? Yeah.
Okay. Now, for me, I just wanted to ask about the consultation times. Do you make an appointment, or you just walk in and according to those time slots? And then number two, in terms of services, is it a free service, or is it a cash payment? You come with a medical aid, you take any medical aid? How does it work?
Completely free for a registered student. So there's no payment at all. The payment is your time for you to actually make the effort to come, because that's the important thing. In terms of what we do is the intake slots that I had, those are the times that we come in. And it's unfortunately a free, first come, first serve basis, the intake slots. So for example, I'm going to use South because that's where I'm based. So we have a slot 10 till 12, and we have 2 people on duty. So in total, we'll take 10 people in that 2.5 hour slots. And then, and that's when you get referred further on. So it's for you to want to come and see someone, that would be. Your other way is to also, you can send an email to, I think it's counseling. I'm not sure 100% the email, but there is an email as well that you can, and say, okay, you need to assist, and then they'll let you know, come on in these slots and that sort of thing. So we have on South Campus, for example, we have morning slots, and then we have afternoon slots. The afternoon slots is 1 person on duty. Morning slots generally is 2 people on duty. Okay.
Because you're saying it's like a first come, first type of the service. And then if I were to make an appointment, then I come in at that.
You have to come in those slots, unfortunately. It's there's a backdrop to that, is that students were making, for example, bookings and then not pitching. So you have counselors that were booked up, but the students weren't available. So that's why I say, if, for example, you are more, we do try to accommodate as far as possible. So, for example, if a student can't make those times, we do try to see how we can fit it in and how we can accommodate the student as well. So we try to be strict about it, but we also try to accommodate.
Just a question online, an inquiry. You mentioned that you also provide virtual counseling. How do we make a booking around that? Thanks.
Sorry. Colleagues online, I will get to you last. We'll just take questions on the floor first. Okay, just.
Same question as the online person. In terms of virtual, if a student is not based here, because I'm mindful that some of our postgraduate students are not even in PE, but they do need your services. How do they navigate the booking of the services?
They can also do the email, and then they will be slotted. We would try and accommodate them and slot them in the intake system. So we do an online intakes as well. Because, for example, George campus is one of the smaller campuses. Sometimes they would actually do virtual intakes at Mission Vale as well. On South, we generally kind of have more foot traffic. So we don't always do a virtual intake, but the other campuses will accommodate. So we do try to accommodate that.
Ms. Vado, we've got a question. It has been semi-handled. If there is an online booking system, I'm assuming that would be the email, but then the follow-up, is there a plan to develop a system where it's not an email that you send, but maybe cloud-based, you see what's available, you populate, and the system generates a particular response?
Okay, firstly, I'm going to say I'm newish to Mtunjeni in terms of starting August last year, but I know Mtunjeni before they were Mtunjeni, they were student counseling and that sort of thing. So I got a bit of history background from there. What happened is they did have an online system where you could book, and it got flooded with bookings. So students were, for example, bookings, students, filling in a form and that sort of thing. And then the counselors weren't able to get to everybody. And then the follow through was longer. So you didn't end up getting a counseling session. The wait was longer, that sort of thing. So people were kind of being missed in the system, those that actually really needed help more urgently. So that's why they actually took the online booking system away. It might come back, but we'll have to see. But it was more that it just got completely flooded. And you had a situation where counselors were sitting with clients assigned to them at 100. And where do you see everybody? How do you see everybody within that working hours? So the intake system just works a little bit better, because sometimes it's actually a situation where you can see if the need is real, it's a real need for the student to be seen by a counselor, or if they can actually be assisted there and then and kind of leave the system, so to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Vado. Any other questions? No other questions. Colleagues, this brings us to the end of session 2. Right at the beginning, we had Prof. Goliath just touch on what you can expect from your supervisor, what is expected of you as a postgrad student as well. We had 2 different viewpoints, a local viewpoint, an international viewpoint, respective journeys that had very similar qualities. Building resilience, you saw their challenges that they went through, they never gave up. But what was really common is in each of those journeys, the student received some sort of support. My wish to you guys, very simple. I hope you find the necessary support that you deserve for your respective journey. And from a student wellness perspective, you know who to reach out to you if you do have a problem. And yeah, from my side, thanks for your attendance. If we look at the agenda, we've taken some of your lunch, but I know lunch is going to be memorable enough for you guys to forgive us. So we will start on time. Our lunch will end 13:45, and that's when that session starts as well. So maybe 2 minutes prior find your seat, get settled, so that the next speaker starts on time as well. Thank you so much. Cheers.